All right, welcome back to Nostalgia Academy, where we go over some of our favorite bands from the 70s all the way to the 2000s, both known and unknown. And today is one that is kind of sort of known. I mean, they're known to a lot of folks who really got into college rock in the 1980s, that's for sure. Today we're diving into a band that helped define one of America's most beloved music scenes. We're talking about Love Tractor. They're not nearly as widely known as R.E.M. or the B-52s, but in the early 1980s, on the University of Georgia campus, Love Tractor was right there shaping what would become the Athens alternative rock legacy. Now, Love Tractor formed in 1980 in Athens, Georgia, started by art students Mark Klein, Mike Richmond, and Armistead Welford at the University of Georgia. From the beginning, they weren't your typical rock band. Much of their early music was completely instrumental, weaving some post-punk energy, jangle-pop grooves, and alt-rock sensibilities into a sound that was both hypnotic and dance-friendly. And it was dance-friendly for sure. The band's early shows were legendary in the local scene, often played at house parties and clubs like the now iconic 40 Watt Club. That's a spot that was also essential for bands like R.E.M. and Pylon, and later on bands like Drivin' and Cryin' would show up there, although I think they were an Atlanta band. Now, to understand Love Tractor, you have to understand Athens in the early 1980s. It was a college town bursting with creative energy and little mainstream attention. Limited venues, concerts put on basically at people's houses, and a community that encouraged experimentation gave rise to something special that became the seminal sound of college rock. Now, Love Tractor wasn't chasing the charts. They were playing just for the joy of making new sounds, and that's how I always looked at them, because it was mostly instrumentals at the time, early on anyways. But that raw authenticity might be why critics and fans alike now consider them foundational to the Athens alternative rock scene. Their 1982 self-titled debut album was entirely instrumental. It was a real bold move in a world where vocals would usually carry the band's identity. I mean, think of if R.E.M. went on without Michael Stipe and just never replaced him. That would be just weird, you know? But the band's signature sound, jangly guitars and killer grooves, immediately hooked everyone, including myself. And I was pretty early on with them, but once I went back and learned that like the early stuff was all instrumental, that kind of blew my mind. This was music you could help but move to. It was all about the rhythm and the melody and the totally upfront, without a singer telling you what to feel. That raw energy from the sharp guitar hooks and the driving bass and drums just cut straight through, making for a really immersive experience. I mean, you kind of had to make up on your own mind what the song was about, right? So in 1982, the album Love Tractor came out. It was their debut album. Buy Me $1 Million, Fun to Be Happy, Chilly Damn Willie, and 17 Days are ones that I remember from the album. Though again, I got into them a little bit later, but I'll get into that. But in 1983 came Around the Bend. It's still mostly rooted in instrumentals, but now featuring a little bit of vocals by Mike Richmond, and that's kind of where they kind of dipped their toe in the water there. And it added a little emotional depth to an already compelling musical universe. That had Spin Your Partner, Island Sweetheart, I think might have been the first song on it. Again, I wasn't a huge fan of either one of their first two albums. And then they had an EP that came out, mostly known, it was called Till the Cows Come Home. It was mostly known for the cover of the song Neon Lights by Kraftwerk. I don't think I ever heard the rest of the songs on that record, and I'm pretty sure someone just gave me a mixtape with Neon Lights on it. Now, by the mid-1980s, Love Tractor was touring in the United States, sharing stages with established acts and gaining traction on college radio. In 1987, they released This Ain't No Outer Spaceship, their first big record on big-time RCA records, giving them broader exposure beyond the Southeast. Now, this is where I came in. I bought this album at a record store in Northwoods Mall in North Charleston, South Carolina, based mainly on the cover art. It's got just this hyper brightly colored album cover. It's really cool looking. I just thought it looked cool. And I'm sure I would have seen something about them in Rolling Stone magazine, so I knew they were an act that I might like. The cover is what grabbed me, and I think I picked that up the same day I got Robin Hitchcock's Element of Light during that same record store visit. I kind of always bought them. I was like the Sith. Always had to have two. But every song in this album is fantastic. It opens with cartoon kitties. It's a high energy opener, often cited as a fan favorite. If you know the chorus, the whole Top Cat nose thing, I've just loved that. Small Town, which has no relation to the John Mellencamp song of the same name. It's just a catchy little jangle-pop song. Chili Part 2 is one of the album's mostly instrumentals. There's a line or two of lyrics in it, but it's not a complete lyric set. It calls back to the early style, but it's a bit moodier. The song's Nightclub Scene is really good. Outside with Ma is pretty good. That's another favorite. It's fine. It's great. I mean, all of them are really good. Beetle Boots is probably my favorite song from the record. It's just the one that kind of just jumped off out of the speakers when I first played it. And then Amusement Park is right behind it, and it's great as well. If you get the CD version, it's got a bonus track on it. It's also on the digital version now, where they did Marvin Gaye's classic, Got to Give It Up. And that's one of the most fun songs. So I hope you get a chance to listen to that. And right after that, or soon after that, came Themes from Venus. This is where they kind of started to blow my mind a little more than just, being a good band. This is where they kind of became one of my favorite bands. It was released in 1988, and it's widely considered the creative peak and basically a pop masterpiece. It was engineered and produced by Mitch Easter. I mean, you couldn't do much better back then. He produced R.E.M. and others, but that's kind of what made me jump all over this record. And I can't stress it enough. It is a weird album, but it's so fun. It's quite possibly my favorite weird album of all time, next to like Lolita Nation by Game Theory, and that one might have also. I think Mitch Easter produced that one too, so he'd be 2 for 2 there. Again, released in 1988 on DB Records. Mitch Easter, he's famous for producing R.E.M's early work. He mixed the album at his drive-in studio, and his influence is heavily felt on this. It was their transition to actual pop music, and in a good way, not like Britney Spears pop. It was atmospheric, and it was lush, but still catchy and very, very danceable. By this point, the band had fully embraced vocals, with guitarist Mike Richmond and bassist Armistead Wilford sharing the singing duties. They're denser, it's more complex than their earlier records. The guitars are less jagged and they're more shimmering, often layered with keyboards to create kind of a spacey texture fitting the Venus title. And the best way I can think to describe it is it's muddy and shimmery at the same time, and I can't think of any album that sounds like it at all. And it's distinct from R.E.M. or B-52s, and it perfectly captures, though, the artistic, experimental, yet accessible spirit of the Athens music scene at the time. Now, they did re-release it, because for a long time it was difficult to find this, without spending a lot of money to get it. It was out of print or something like that. But in 2022, the album was remastered and reissued by Propeller Sound Recordings. It was significant because a couple of the band members actually were involved in the remixing and cleaning up the audio, making it sound clearer and punchier than the original 1988 version. I like it a lot. I still prefer the original mix, I'll just be honest. I do love the extended version of the song Satan, which is one of my favorite tracks of theirs of all time, and I didn't even know that it was an extended version. I just had it playing in the background one day, and all of a sudden another part came on that I don't remember from before, and it kind of blew my mind. But some of the best songs there are I Broke My Saw, which is fantastic. It's the lead single and arguably one of the band's most famous tracks. It features a catchy driving rhythm and absurd lyrics. I mean, it's a weird record. The song Crash, I think, was a lead single, and I know there was an MTV video for it. The song Satan, which I did mention before, and also Venice. That's another one it plays more as an instrumental, but I know it has a full vocal track as well, and it's just great. Again, I could listen to this album on repeat all day long. So for their first album in over 12 years, they took some time off, and it really shows. They released an album called The Sky at Night, and that was in 2001. Sounds kind of like them. I mean, you can tell it is them, but after 12 years, of course, they sounded different. When I liked the record, I didn't love it, but I did really, really like 2 songs. Christ Among the Children is a mostly instrumental track that does sound like the early records. and then one called Balthus, the Old Clothesline, which sounds like it could have fit on Themes from Venus just due to its weirdness. The production sounds totally different, and it doesn't really sound like one of those songs from Themes from Venus, but it could have fit there, I think, anyways. And then after that, kind of jumped out. They put out a few more albums, mainly Black Hole in 2005 and Green Winter in 2006. And by then, I was mostly into stuff like Death Cab for Cutie and Frightened Rabbit, and I was still into Wilco and such. So I just wasn't really into the Love Tractor scene anymore. I do remember the song Turquoise and Yellow being good, but not because it sounded like Love Tractor, but because it was just pretty good. In 2006, they also put out a Christmas album. The only Christmas album by an artist that I really like is by Amy Mann. I know the DBs did one. I think the Smithereens did one, but I'm not a fan of albums you can only pull out once a year, you know. So on a personal note, I got to see them at Green Streets in Columbia, which is fairly decent sized club. It was a nice place. It was a wild show, totally packed out. It was basically a party. Them and UB40 are the two bands I've seen live that it just played more as a party than it did a concert, really. They were fantastic there. I also got to see them in Savannah, Georgia, at their auditorium there. They opened up for the B-52s, and I remember they had some technical difficulties. A drum machine or a keyboard with a drum machine wouldn't work, so they're kind of limited to what songs they could play, but they were really, really good and a really great match with the B-52s, just them being so quirky, and the B-52s are, you know what they're like. So what do you think? Were you a Love Tractor fan? Did you ever see them at their peak? Did you have a favorite Love Tractor album? I mean, there's plenty of variety to choose from the instrumental first couple albums to the more pop-oriented stuff they did for the next two, and then they kind of moved into more prog rock right towards the end, from what I understand. Again, plenty of variety to go around. So alongside bands like R.E.M. and Pylon, Love Tractor kind of helped shape what we now think of as the Athens sound. Music that fused indie rock, art rock, post-punk, and danceable grooves into something uniquely Southern, yet universally compelling. So next time you explore the Athens music scene's history, don't just stop at R.E.M. or the B-52s. Take a moment to listen to Love Tractor. They're a band that proved that rhythm and melody could do all the talking. And thanks for watching Nostalgia Academy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, blah, blah, blah. You know how YouTube works. I go into all the stories of the bands that I just love so much, and I hope you do too. And I hope you even if you hadn't listened to Love Tractor or even know who they are, just give them a chance. They're really, really good. So until the next one, take care, and remember, always look up, because that's where the answers are. See you next time.